take this songwriting, I come to Jesus with an open hand. And if it's not your will, if you have something else for me, like, feel free to take it, like, 'cause it's not mine.
What's up, community? Welcome back to the Loop Community Podcast. Today we have Tommy Iceland on the podcast. He's a new artist. He has a brand new song called Impact, and it's really good. Check it out on Apple Music and Spotify. We also have the Master Tracks available on loopcommunity.com. And he's going to be interviewed by a different Matt today. You're probably used to hearing Matt McCoy do the interviews, but today we have Matt Slack on the podcast. He works here at Loop Community, and he is also a worship leader. And they're going to talk about Tommy's career and just him and how he's got started and what God's doing in his life. And so get ready for a great interview with Tommy Iceland.
Have you ever felt as a worship leader intimidated by using technology in worship? It can be hard if you've never used technology in worship to actually start implementing it into your worship services, because you just want to focus on leading worship. You don't want to focus on technology. Well, in June of 2020, we're going to be a part of the Worship Innovators Conference. This is going to be 2 days of practical training for you and your team of how to implement technology in your worship service. If you want to learn how to integrate tracks, how to use Ableton Live, how to integrate lyrics, lighting, how to write chord charts, how to run effective sound checks and rehearsals, all sorts of things that a worship leader needs to know in 2020, this conference is for you. So make sure you sign up at worshipinnovators.com. There's limited space available, so make sure you get your ticket today and learn from the leading companies in worship innovation today. See you there.
Tommy, thanks so much for joining us today on the Loop Community Podcast. We're so excited to have you on just for a few minutes to hear your heart on songwriting. Thanks so much for being here. We've just heard a little bit, not much, but no, you have a really interesting story. You're a worship leader originally from Sweden, with some new things cooking. You've been over here in the States doing a lot of songwriting. Can you just start by sharing us kind of the journey that you've been on over the past few years and how you got started worship leading and kind of your musical background and just the journey that you've been on to get to where you are today?
I was actually originally born on Iceland and grew up in Sweden. We moved to Sweden when I was 3 years old. And kind of grew up in the church. And my family on my mom's side from Iceland, they were all like heavily involved in church and worship, and they recorded albums. And my mom even recorded a gospel album in London in the 70s. But so I had my musical influences from my mom's side. And then my sisters were very involved in the church in Sweden, and they were older than me. And when I was around probably 15 or something, they really needed a drummer for the youth choir.
Okay.
And kind of forced me to join them.
Yeah, nice.
I didn't have any friends in church at that age. You know, it was a very small church.
Yeah.
My life was all about hockey at that point.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay. Very cool.
But I played drums as well. And I decided to join the youth choir, started playing there, and then I don't know how that happened, but just eventually found myself leading worship together with my sisters. Because I play guitar, and I was just singing and writing songs in my own bedroom, and didn't want anyone to hear it.
Sure,
it's just for me.
Wow.
But I think it's all because of my sisters. They kind of like dragged me into all these things.
Yeah, wow, that's great.
Which I'm grateful for today. But it wasn't anything that I was like pursuing at all.
Yeah.
But yes, I was part of that church until I was like 19 or 20 or something like that. And then I moved to another city, studied music and media, and really learned more about like recording and producing.
Did you feel that you said you were a hockey player. Did you feel all that time that you wanted to do music, or was that something that just kind of transformed over the years?
It's probably something that transformed over the years, and that I always had an interest in both. But
Yeah.
I had so much confidence in myself as a hockey player.
Right.
I thought I was going to make it to the NHL. Right. So that was like everything that was on my radar, So
yeah, for sure.
But then obviously that didn't happen. So Plan B.
Well, hey, it's always good to have one of those.
Yeah. So that time in that music school was kind of, it really taught me a lot, and especially, it was great being in school, but you really learn by practicing the things that you, you know, like producing and recording and writing and all that. And I had a couple of internships when I was at that school. One of them actually in LA, because my teacher had a lot of friends in LA. I did my internship with a producer, Bill Schnee. He's a great producer. You know, he's been working with all the big names like Whitney Houston, Phil Collins, Rod Stewart, and those guys. So it was a great honor just, you know, being there, sitting next to him for a few weeks and just
that's huge.
Soaking in that atmosphere.
Right.
But yeah, and then came back to Sweden, finished my my degree there. You know, a lot of things happened after that. I went on a missions trip to Tanzania. Was able to perform my own music in front of thousands. Like, from like a small church in Sweden out to like villages in Tanzania and performing there. That was so
that was your first time probably then performing your own original music?
I think it was. My sister got married somewhere around that time. Yeah. I think it was right before I went to Tanzania, and she forced me to play an original song at the wedding. Gosh. So that was the first time, like really performing in front of a lot of people. So yeah, I was so nervous.
Was that as terrifying as everyone says it is for you?
It was kind of terrifying, but it somehow inspired me to keep on doing it because you know, people were very encouraging. I'm sure it wasn't awesome, but people were just so encouraging, and
that's like, huge. Yeah, to get the feedback.
Just inspired me to keep on writing and just, you know, singing my own songs as well. And we on that mission trip to Tanzania, I did actually 3 of those, but on one of those missions trip, I met my wife.
Very cool.
At the airport in Dar es Salaam, and we were just, you know, both doing missionary work, different things, and I was involved in a sports project, just serving the, you know, local schools and communities with like teaching kids about like
sports.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I got to know this beautiful blonde Swedish girl when I was down there, and we stayed in touch after I went back home because she stayed like 5 months after I went to Sweden, and became a couple in Sweden like a week or so after she got back to Sweden. And then like 6 months after that, we got engaged, and, you know, a year after that, we got married, and we planted ourselves in Gothenburg, which is on the west coast of Sweden. Okay. And it's just like an hour away from where both of us grew up.
Oh, yeah.
So we went to a church there called Connect Church, and it was just, you know, the local church down the street from where we lived. And this church had they had a good like music program in the church. Okay. They wrote their own songs, their own worship music. Yeah. And it was a growing church. We became a part of that church and the worship team. I started leading pretty soon after we became a part of it. Okay. And soon got like involved in the writing, and eventually ended up like overseeing the writing in the church, and then producing our albums as well.
Very cool.
That time in that church was really set the foundation to where I am today, doing this for a living, you know, writing and and all that. So we had amazing pastors there, Anders and Camilla Olson, and they were just very encouraging. They wanted all of us to just like pursue this, and really like prioritized writing our music and recording, and, you know, equipping our church with that.
Okay, great.
That music.
Was that church, was that your first, the first time that you recorded a project and released it that you were a part of then? Yeah,
well, not completely. I left out the part when I was a drummer in a reggae band when I was like 14 to 17 or something like that. We actually recorded and released, you know, independent, obviously.
That's very cool.
EPs. But yeah, so, you know.
You learned from all those experiences, so I'm sure it helped you out in some ways.
Yeah, and when I was studying in that, you know, music school, I did a couple of like EP projects as well, just indie. Yeah. And then, that was when I was a part of the church. That was when it got more, you know, serious, and and it started to sound better for sure. But it was a great crew. We were a very good team. I realize now just how blessed we were at that church. But also, like, we were a part of that church for like 9 or 10 years before we moved to the States, and it's just cool to see how you grow as a team.
Yeah, for
sure. In the beginning, like, we were all just like trying things out, you know, It was all like uncharted waters where we didn't know at all what we were doing, but we had pastors that were like so encouraging and wanted us to explore this. And we had my worship pastor at that point, Jonas, like he was a guy that I really looked up to and that I really could learn a lot from. And it was a good environment to grow in these things. And so we did an album in Swedish in 2012, and that's where I was a part of producing the album. And we wanted to take it to a new level, just, involve, a mixing producer that we all loved, and that was Sam Gibson, who's done a lot for like Hillsong Worship and United and all these bands that we loved listening to. And then we did an English project in 2015 because we've only written songs in Swedish up till that point.
Okay.
But our church and our pastors, they had a lot of relationships with churches around the world, and these churches and these pastors kind of like asking for the translations of our songs into English.
Wow.
Because they loved the way it sounded. So that kind of triggered us to do songs in English. So did an EP 2015, and somehow I think it was through a Swedish Christian publisher. He had sent that EP to a guy he knew in Nashville who was in the music industry here. And we heard, from that Swedish publisher that, this guy in Nashville liked our music and thought that this stuff could probably work, in the States as well. So that really inspired us to try to, reach out to labels in Nashville. And I didn't know at all what I was doing at that point. I just, didn't know anything about the music industry here in the States. And I just started sending that EP out to radio stations and blogs and everything.
Is that currently out on the market for people to listen to then still? I'd be curious to check it out.
Yeah, definitely. It should be under Connect Church. I know it's not like a super uncommon name, but I think we're the...
No, we could certainly find it.
Yeah. So, you can actually find the Swedish album from 2012 on there as well. And then the EP from 2015. Yeah. So, anyway, so KLTY radio station in Dallas, their program director, Mike Prendergast, I remember that well. He reached out, emailed me and asked if we were signed somewhere, and he really wanted to play our music. And I was just blown away by that because, KLTY is a big radio station, and just,
I'm from Dallas myself, so I'm very, very familiar.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
So that was awesome. And, we weren't signed anywhere. So he said, I'll just send it to some friends of mine in Nashville. And, he wanted to help in any way he could. And then I think it was a few weeks later or something like that, one of the labels in Nashville reached out and asked if we were ever, passing through town or anything. They wanted to meet.
Wow. And
me and my pastor, we were already going to the States every now and then because we had a very close relationship with Gateway Church in Dallas.
Okay. Yep.
So we thought let's just go to Nashville and see if we can,
see what happens.
Meet with this label. And through the relationships we had with Gateway, they connected us with some other people in Nashville. And all of a sudden we were meeting with a bunch of labels, and we felt that God kind of breathed on this and
orchestrated.
Wanted us to take these songs outside Sweden. And eventually, it was a long journey. We recorded a couple more songs and then released a single in 2017 called My King. That's under Connect Worship on Spotify, if anyone wants to look that up. But that song got pretty good traction pretty fast, which is fun. We did it in church for a couple of years before we even released it.
Oh, yeah, that's so fun.
So eventually, long story short, the church took another direction and became a Hillsong church.
Gotcha.
So we were a part of something called the Hillsong family for about 5 years. So we were very close to Hillsong and drew a lot of inspiration from them. And then the pastors really felt led to kind of form Hillsong Sweden together with Hillsong Stockholm. And we stepped in with 4 different campuses into that. And that was, it was a good move for the church, I believe. But then, all of that stuff that was going on in the States kind of stopped, obviously, because we became Hillsong. And then I signed as a songwriter with Full Circle Music.
Okay.
Seth Mosley's label here in Nashville. And I was already coming over on writing trips as much as I could. I still wrote a lot with the people back home in my church, in my community there. But God was opening up these doors with writers in the States. So did that and, ended up with Full Circle as a writer.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you're living there in Nashville currently?
Yeah, I came over on these riding trips to Nashville and Franklin, especially Franklin.
Yeah.
Brentwood, I was riding a lot, and I just fell in love with
Yeah, it's
this
an amazing place.
this area. Yeah, and my wife, we went to Dallas once, but apart from that, she's never been to the States.
Okay.
And she's been, she was so against America. Like her picture of America was like, only bad food and like fast food, and
Yeah, well, she's not far off. There's good things too.
There is, obviously. I mean, America's a big country, and you have like the spectrum.
For sure.
I mean, it's a big spectrum. But she could never see herself like living in the States. And she's very much into healthy cooking and all that, healthy food.
Yeah.
So, she just loves being home and close to her family and all that.
Yeah,
but
of course.
I felt like I really wanted to bring her to Nashville on one of these riding trips, just so she could see it for herself. Yeah. And so last year in May, me and my wife and our two sons, Emilian and Elliot, they're 5 and 6 years old now.
Oh, that's great.
We came over and we stayed for 3 weeks, actually, and took a few days. And then my wife asked me, like, aren't you going to ask me what I think about this place? And I was like, silently hoping that she would love it, but I didn't want to put any pressure on her. So I didn't ask her. But then she said, like, I could totally see myself living here.
Wow.
So I was just, blown away, and it was just such a hard shift, obviously.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And, I just want to move right away. But we decided to pray first,
it's a good
obviously.
Move. It's a big move.
Yeah. And just, we wanted God to confirm this. And we got some prophetic words just the day after that was just so spot on from a worship leader in Finland. And, things that she couldn't know anything about, but it was just like confirming exactly what we were praying about and all that. So we went back to Sweden, sold our house, sold everything, furniture, car, said goodbye to our families.
Wow.
Packed 7 suitcases and a guitar and came to Nashville.
Man, just like
started over from nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, it's happened really relatively then over a short period of time, a few years, looking back on it. I mean, it's cool to see just how, moves like that are hard to do, but when you have confirmation, from the Lord and people speaking into, your life that are close to you, it makes those things very exciting because you can move there with confidence, and know that you're there for a reason. So that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's so much about God's timing as well. I really want to stress that because in Sweden, I was working as an audio producer for 8 years at a company, doing voiceover recordings and sound design and stuff like that. It was a great place to work, but I felt like at that point, I was after 4 or 5 years into that work, I felt like I wanted to pursue songwriting more and more. So I kind of wanted to quit my job and do that it was about 3 years when I really wanted to just quit my job and do that. But I didn't hear go from God before, this happened. So it was all about God's timing. I really felt like I needed to stay planted and just, stay faithful to the things that I had in front of me. And I couldn't have done this any sooner. I wish all of this would have happened when I was 20, but I'm 34. I'm 34 today, and I thought I was, gonna make it as a songwriter when I was super young. But I'm so grateful for the journey that God had me on, with the church and building that church and kind of growing in that environment for so long, and having pastors around me that was really encouraging and really could coach me in this area. And that's really special. And it was the right time when we did the move. Sure.
Right. Absolutely.
No, it wouldn't be possible if we had done it a year or two before that. 2 years before that. Yeah. It's crazy looking back on it. It's God's timing is always perfect. Sometimes it's hard to see it in the moment. I feel like in the life of a songwriter, time just moves in slow motion because when you're writing a song, you're wanting it to advance to the next stage, and all this stuff. You're always thinking about the next step, and when you're particularly in a situation with a job, and you're just wondering, when the exit is. It's hard to stay focused on kind of the bigger picture, what God's trying to do. And I'm kind of impatient sometimes. You want things to happen fast, but it's just, the life of a songwriter is that you write a song and then the best thing you can do is just forget about the song.
That's
just,
good.
leave it in someone else's hands. If you have a publisher or someone, leave it to them and then just forget about the song. Yeah. And then it might be a surprise a year or 2 years after that.
The best
someone
kind of
wants to cut the song. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. It's pretty crazy just to hear how fast it's all happened for you.
Yeah, I just want to say that as well. Like, I've only been here not even a year in Nashville now. I did a bunch of songwriting trips over here before that. I probably came 3 or 4 times a year for 3 years.
Wow.
So I tried to really be around the people that I could, grow around as a writer.
Right.
So that shaped me a lot as a writer.
Yeah.
But I've just seen that because we really stepped onto the water, taking that step, that leap of faith,
it's
moving over here.
Huge leap of faith.
It's not a small thing, moving your family across the ocean to another country like that.
I can't imagine.
And everything else that's going on in the background, like with just practical stuff, just planning your family in a new country and schools and getting health insurance, which in Sweden we don't have to think about that stuff. It's just included in our taxes.
Right. Yeah, it's a whole other world.
Yeah, but it's just been so amazing to see how God has just provided for us since we came here. And I'm just so incredibly grateful for the cuts that I've had as a writer with people that I really look up to a lot. And it's just been so cool to see how, it's been a good reminder from God that, I felt like he was just saying, stay faithful and write the songs, and he will take care of the rest.
Right.
Because I was kind of like really wanting things a little bit too much in the beginning, I feel like. And then, songs would get cut, and I felt like I didn't have anything to do with it because it was all just orchestrated by God.
Right.
And
that's huge. That's kind of one of the questions I was hoping to ask you is like, you feel, you have this call to worship. But at the point that it becomes a career for you, how do you keep that in the center of your mind while not letting the business aspect like excite you to a point where you're prioritizing that over the call? If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, God doesn't have a problem with us wanting to provide for our families, obviously, and all that. It has to be, if you want to do this for a living, there is a business aspect of it, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, there are like formulas. You could just listen to the Christian CCM radio or like the pop playlist or whatever, and you can hear a formula. I've never been like super focused on that. We're called to be worshipers. Like we're called to worship God and, just live our lives for his glory. And while I'm writing, I always just want to write from a place of, realness, like honesty, stuff that I can relate to. I never want to write made up stories. Like I know some people might do that and like don't have a problem with that at all. But just, I feel like I have to write out of a place of my own life, stuff that I walked through, my faith journey, my journey with God and all that. And it's up to God to take those songs, if he wants to, breathe on those songs and take it to a bigger platform. But I don't know. I hope that
that's good. It's just a hard thing, for anyone writing songs. It's like you have these dreams, but I think one of the greatest things I've heard so far is the best thing you can do, like you said, is just to write it and just let it be what it is. Just be diligent. If you're called to be a songwriter and to worship, and you just do that to the best of your ability. I think your story is just a great a testament to that. Just being diligent. With your time, just honoring him in all things, and then he will orchestrate the rest if that's his will. Yeah,
and I'll also say that it's just so important to just stay humble throughout the whole process and trust God that, with that, I know I've held on to what I believe was my calling, for so many years. I've held on to it. It's so hard because, I've put my identity too much in my gifts, and it's easy for us to do that sometimes. Like, well, who am I if I'm not writing songs, if I'm not on a platform leading worship, like who am I? Right. And we just need to come to God with an open hand. We need to do that every once in a while. I remember a couple of times when it's like, I've been really wanting things to happen so bad. And then I felt like I had to repent and just come to God with an open hand. Yeah. Just having your gift, take this songwriting. I just, come to Jesus with an open hand. And if it's not your will that if you don't want me to pursue this as a career, if you have something else for me, feel free to take it, because it's not mine. And if it's still there after that, you pray that prayer, if it's still there and God still wants you to pursue that, then you have a blessing to just continue to pursue it. But we always just have to come with open hands and not hold too fast, too hard onto the gifts. and we feel like we have. And I think that humble posture, humble heart sets the foundation for this to happen, whatever it is, if it's songwriting or if it's worship leading or if it's pastoring or
right. It's such a good reminder. I'm involved at a number of small churches and work with some incredible songwriters myself, and it's like the Lord will breathe on it as long as you are diligent and discerning of what He's telling you in the moment. I've heard some of the most amazing songs from worship leaders at very small churches, and they may or may not have any desire to pursue it at a greater level, but the Lord will still use whatever you put your hands and feet to. So it's a good reminder.
True.
Let's shift a little bit and talk about what you've been doing recently. You have a song out right now called Impact. Tell me a little bit of the story behind that. I know you worked a little bit with Chris Tomlin on that one. Let's hear a little bit of that story.
So Chris Tomlin, that was my first cut with another artist outside Sweden.
Wow.
Which is
big time.
Just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It's because I totally felt like, I just got into a room with a guy that I never met before, Mitch Wong, great songwriter, great human being, like one of my best friends. He's from Australia, it's part of Planet Shakers. So we got in a room, we've never met, we wrote this song, started writing this song, and I just, loved the song that we got. It just felt special, and then I played it to my publisher, Stacey Wilbur, later that afternoon, and she just loved the song. I said, I have to pitch this to Chris. And I was like, Chris who?
Chris who?
Chris Tomlin. I was like, wait, what? Are you serious?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, yes. So she texted him, can I send you a song? And he's like, yeah, for sure, send it. She did. We didn't hear anything for a couple of months. And then she reached out to him again, what do you guys think about the song? And he said, well, everyone loves it. I love it. The label loves it. We're already, going to record it now. And all that happened super fast. And that was such a good reminder from God. I just stay faithful, write the songs, and He will take care of the rest, because I couldn't have kicked that door open. Like I said, I never met Chris before that. We've never written together or anything.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, huge thank you to my publisher who made that happen as well.
Of course.
Anyway, Chris recorded it and released it on, first the Holy Roar EP, then the Holy Roar album, and then the live album. So it's been on 3 different projects. And I felt like I'd love to do my own version of it, because obviously it was a very special song.
Yeah.
The first song I had cut with another artist. I released that in August 2019. Yeah. And it's obviously been a song that's, helped me a lot, opened a lot of doors, obviously, which I'm so grateful for. And had the privilege of writing with Chris in February earlier this year.
Wow.
I just spent a full day with him, and that was awesome.
That's amazing.
Just really get to know him as well. That was the first song. I've had a great year so far that I'm super grateful for. I had a song with Jesus Culture that came out on their last album called For No Other Reason. Wrote that with Mia Fields and Andrew Holt. Andrew Holt is the worship pastor of The Belonging, and Mia is someone that's been encouraging me a lot. Yeah. And that she spent a lot of time writing with me, to the point when no one knew about me. I wasn't a name here in this industry at all, but she took time to write with me, although I was a new and upcoming writer. So I'm super grateful for that. We had that song cut with Jesus Culture, and Chris Kilala was also a writer on that. Yeah, and then David Leonard, such a great guy. I've looked up to him for so many years, listened to, obviously, All Sons and Daughters, everything they've done. I've been a huge fan. And then got to know him, first on a writing camp here in Nashville in 2017. And we actually wrote that song, Come As You Are, that he recorded on the album in 2017. And then we wrote You Know Me, another song the year after that. I was just so humbled that he decided to record these songs. And yeah, lately just been focusing on, I write probably 4 times a week at least.
Never ends.
And yeah, but sometimes you gotta switch things up. And I mainly write worship, but I try to write, for pop or for,
just keep things moving.
TV, film, or whatever. Yeah. And then I have to take breaks every once in a while to just, can't write every day of the week.
Yeah, you gotta recharge. Yeah. Wow.
And I've been doing a lot of worship leading as well lately.
Okay, that's great. At a church locally there in Nashville?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I'm about to do that very soon here in Nashville. But
okay, very cool.
I've been traveling a bit. I've been to Sweden, and I've been to Indiana. Been a bit all over the place leading.
That's great.
It's fun getting back to it, because I've been leading 15 years straight in Sweden, and then when we moved here, that whole thing kind of paused, obviously, because we were trying to find a new church and all that.
Wow.
So that's also been good because, for the identity thing, I can't identify as a worship leader.
Right.
That's not who I am. That's something I get to do. It's a privilege. I'm still a worshiper.
That's so good. Would you say that songwriting has played a role? And I mean, what effect has that had on your actual worship leading? You've now got some experience, writing all these songs, and you've been worship leading, for years back in Sweden. What has that kind of transition as you're starting to lead worship again? How has that changed since kind of a lot of these events have taken place?
Oh man, it's a tough question. I don't know really. Like it's obviously you get kind of like damaged is the right word, but like if you always listen to the songs in a different way if you're a songwriter.
Yeah, sure.
You listen to the hooks or the clever things in the songs. Yeah, man, I don't know. Like when I'm leading worship, it's not so much about that. It's more like when I'm preparing for the set. Maybe I'm listening. I get I have my favorites, but you do the best with the songs that you're given, because I've been leading worship in some other churches. The set list might be pretty set already. I can always speak into it, but
sure,
you might be given songs that you're supposed to lead, and it might be songs that I've led songs that I'm not used to leading at all, like in the context that I was a part of. That's super different, but you have to do the best with what you're given. And when I'm there and I'm leading, it's all about just kind of including the room, getting everyone focused on God.
Right.
And
I don't know, how would you say that your worship leading experience in Sweden is different or is the same? Did you see a lot of difference there? Was there an adjustment to be made, when you came over here and kept leading?
The major thing is definitely the language barrier,
for sure,
because we speak Swedish in Sweden, and we study English from 10 years of age in school, but it's a whole different ball game. Stepping into a platform and leading a church in a
whole nother
foreign
culture.
language. Just like a foreign language, and you want to you have the right words and everything. So that's something that's definitely taken time to grow into.
Right.
But that's the major thing. But I don't know, if it's cultural, that big of a difference. It's more about the different type of churches we're in. If I'm leading in a Baptist church, obviously that's going to be a lot different from if I'm leading at a Pentecostal church.
Yeah, for sure.
Or the church where I was a part of in Sweden. Context in Sweden where I was a part of the Connect Church there. It was I'd say the worship was kind of somewhat structured. We had songs with tracks that we would do, and then we would have one or two songs that were more free. We would have time for some spontaneous things, and that's something that took time to explore. Our pastors really wanted us to do that and wanted to give space in the service to actually do that.
Right.
Our services were never longer than 1 hour and 30 minutes though.
Yep.
So that's what I'm used to. I believe that's the perfect length of a service, church service, just because that's what I'm used to. But some churches do longer, and I love when the worship team is kind of free to explore and just
spontaneous and
and when you just you're allowed to just stop and just dwell and just be with the Lord for a while and just
right.
But obviously when you're leading in some other churches, they might not have that space for that.
Sure.
And some churches I've led in, they do tracks on every song, so obviously that's more structure. You have a more specific time to work with, in the transitions. Maybe you have 30 seconds to say something or encourage the church. How much time you are entrusted with as a worship leader, you got to just do the best with that as you can. And I'd say always try to stick to the word. If I have a 30 seconds transition or something, I would share a Bible verse or something like that, just so we're always speaking life and truth and not just getting
Yeah, I mean that's the constant, that you can always count on to align the body, with what you're trying to do. I mean, songwriting it's so much of a collaborative thing. Would you say that has helped you, and even your time back in Sweden serving in that church? Do Do you feel that you can go in and you're more confident, like reading the room and seeing kind of where to take things spiritually? I mean, that's kind of something that only comes with years. But again, you've been kind of thrown into it. Would you say that there's been a lot of growth that's happened in that regard?
Obviously, that has helped me a lot as a songwriter. If I'm writing for the church, I know what I'm doing in one way. Not to sound like cocky, but I'm used to being in a room leading worship. Yeah, you get a feel of what might work and what might not work, so if I'm writing for the church, is always hearing the church while I'm writing a worship song, like this section, could this section feel like big, and would this include everyone, like would everyone be able to sing this, or so that experience obviously helps if you're writing for the church. Huge. If you're actually in the position leading the church, or if you're on the the platform in the worship team. I mean that's a constant grow. Just a few years back when I wrote for the church in Sweden, the album we did in 2012 or the EP in 2015. I mean, there's some good stuff on there, but I think I've grown as a writer since then. If you're always doing it, you always grow. And you feel like, I wouldn't have rewritten this maybe and, tweaked this before we introduced it to the church and made this more singable and all that. So,
yeah, well, I think that's natural, like you said, you're always growing and reflecting on past things. So it's just very cool to hear, how far you've come and the things God's doing in your life with your family. What do you got maybe coming in this next year that you're looking forward to, or that you could talk about even?
I'm looking forward to go back to Sweden over Christmas first.
Very nice. Very nice.
But right now, I'm just in a season where I'm writing for myself, because I'm planning to release an EP, debut EP in the spring.
Oh, great!
Sometime.
Amazing.
Late spring, probably. Timing wise, you never know, but that's the plan.
Tentative plan.
And I've been focusing a lot on my writing. I want to release my own music, and obviously, I've released one song so far. Yeah. And previously, it's always been through a church. Okay. And I feel like God has provided me with these opportunities here, and I'm able to release some of my own music, which I love to do. But I've been so focused on writing for other people. I've written some songs that I'm passionate about, but it's a whole different thing feeling like that I'm the one who should carry the songs. Like I can write a song for someone else in mind, and they might not cut it, but it still might not feel like me 100% as an artist. So I'm trying to do more focused writing on me up till for a couple of months, and then the plan is just to pick maybe 5 songs to focus on and do an EP that's going to be released next year.
Okay, that's awesome.
So that's kind of like the main goal right now. And although simultaneously, I'm obviously writing with other people as well, just to for other projects as well. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's got stuff in the pipeline, but it's you never know. When artists they might put your song on hold and all that. And
it's pretty
make big promises, but you never know if the song's getting cut until it's actually out. Wow. I've had songs that have been recorded and everything, and all of a sudden didn't make it onto the album anyway. So it's something you got to get used to as a writer. Yeah, like you never know, and I don't want to get my hopes up too much. But it's just a good season. We are enjoying Nashville. We live in Franklin.
Okay,
which is
Franklin's
even
amazing.
Better, I think.
Oh yeah, Franklin is a gem for sure.
Yeah, it is.
Awesome. It's so exciting. So good to have you on here. Thanks for, again, just taking a few minutes to kind of share your heart on some of these things. All your music can be found under the name Tommy Iceland.
Yes.
Correct? On all the Spotify. And what is that? What is your real last name?
Sjöström.
Oh man, I don't even know if I can try.
See, that's why I go with Tommy Iceland instead, because I mean, no one could pronounce my last name, and someone called me Iceland, and it just got stuck.
And it stuck.
So yeah.
Oh man, okay.
That's why I'm using that.
Well, sounds good to me. So you can check out your song "Impact" under the name Tommy Iceland. Tom, so good to hear from you. We look forward to hearing more from you on this EP in the late spring, hopefully.
Thank you, man. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right.
Thanks for joining us on the Loop Community Podcast. Music from this episode is brought to you by John Guerra from his album Little Songs. Make sure you check it out on Apple Music or Spotify. If you enjoy listening to this podcast, leave a review and a rating. It means a lot. We'll see you soon.